Welcome to the final episode of the first season of Living the Questions podcast. My goodness, how are we here? I cannot believe that I'm recording the last episode of the first season. This feels, there's so many things that I'm feeling. Like much of this podcast, there's a lot of things going on at one time. It feels like, a lot of multidimensionality happening right now. It both feels surreal that this is the completion of the first season and that the first season will, when you're listening to this, will be fully out and available to listen to as a whole or as separate parts. And it feels also just really amazing to have lived into it. We're living into the questions every episode, and this podcast was created by living into it. I wanted this episode to be a reflection of what the season has been and what the through line for me has been and what this experience has been like. And what a cool way to even start this episode by naturally recognizing that its creation is inherently connected to what the podcast is about. And so stepping into this, the beginning of it all was really, it came from a place that took a lot of self-compassion, a lot of courage to within my own self to move into this direction, to say yes to myself and to make the step into the unknown. I there's many things in the past that I've wanted to create or even started creating and didn't know how to continue it. And it's really cool to me to see something that feels like those were the stepping stones to this. It's really amazing to see a creation have a beginning, middle, and end. And this also isn't an end. This is a end of a season. It's a chapter close of sorts, but it also is a continuation. It feels like there's an ellipsis after this because life keeps going on and we're continuing to live into the questions that came up through this season. And when we come back in the fall for season 2, we'll have lots of questions to live into then and a lot that likely connects to what we started here. So they are connected, and that is a really beautiful thing. And also, I love that we've created this container of seasons and being able to create spaciousness to deepen the integration that might have come from this season, from this time. And yeah, so to start this and to remember my past self then, my very recent past self then, who was really nervous to put her voice out there, really nervous what I would sound like, how I would be received, what I would even say. There were so many questions that I had going into this, and I really just had to step into the bravery of it, to be alongside my fear and to do it anyway. And that is really cool to think back on because here I am recording the last episode. And even though I have some notes of things that I am excited to maybe reflect on, maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't. I typically don't have notes with me, but this episode felt like a good one to have that in reflection. But it's so cool to be here now and yeah, to feel like that's a distant memory, that moment for me of feeling nervous to share my voice. Now it feels natural to be doing this. It feels really, there's like a rhythm to the sweetness of sharing this. There's a beauty of having shared now 14 episodes with you. And I feel like this conversation started and is now unfolding in the beautiful way that it is just naturally wanting to, needing to. And I love that it feels natural for me now. So to think back to myself when I was recording some of these episodes in November of last year of 2024, and when I recorded my trailer in February of this year, 2025. The nervousness around myself, there was like an excitement nervousness. The excitement was that I was really loving what I was creating. The nervousness was still learning how to share my voice, still learning how to use my voice, still learning what my voice even sounded like and how to trust it and not need it to be anything but present. And that is such a learning lesson that I feel like I've definitely been bringing to the surface through this season in so many ways, that it's not about getting it right, getting it perfect. It's about being present. I think that's one of the big through lines for me, how important presence is in this world, and how it is the it's such a powerful thing. It's the thing that connects us all, and it's also the thing when removed that disconnects us all. And so the power of presence, my goodness, is yeah, that's something that I'm still integrating and embodying, but it is profound to me just how important it is and what a lesson it is to invite ourselves to be present. For me personally, what it looks like to even know and discern the difference of when I am and am not being present. And that's a lot of the congruence we were talking about of things like, am I where am I actually aware of where I am? Or am I trying to be somewhere that I'm not yet? And can I just allow myself to be where where I actually am right now, and not need to push myself to be further than I am, but acknowledge where I am and know that I'm seeing where I want to go. And not being there right now doesn't mean that I can't get there. And admitting that I'm not there right now helps me know where I am so that I can get there. And I feel like that's a huge part of presence. And also, these pieces, too, like a big one that came up for me also through this season is the idea, and most recently, honestly, has been able to kind of put itself into words, is my love of spaciousness and my discernment of what it means to ask for space, to create space. And what I recognize is the beauty of space that we all need as humans, the beauty of spaciousness that we can gift ourselves and one another. And the discernment of like the bigger question for me that I'm really excited to continue to live into is, how do I honor space and spaciousness while remaining connected? And so, so instead of taking space and being disconnected, how do I take space and remain connected? And I feel like that's one that we can only live into. And that feels massive. That feels so massive. And that feels connected to presence as well. So I'm getting into all the fun things of what I feel like has come through this season. It's just so much. And I am so curious what has come up for you. So please, please share what has come through listening to the episodes that you've listened to in this season. And um, yeah, what any through lines are for you, and what has just lit up your heart, what questions have come forward, and what do you feel like you've maybe integrated or are integrating or are embodying or even are just sitting with. Wherever you may find yourself, a big part of this podcast and this season in general was this big invitation, this reminder that the middle of things, the messy part of life can be, the messy parts of life can be a safe space. Safe, I know we've talked about in a couple of episodes as, how do we actually define safety? And only really we can define that for ourselves. And I think there's something here around the invitation of, or just like the knowing the seeing that it can be safe, it can be okay, it can be spacious enough for us to be seen in our messiness, to be seen in this in between. And I think there's something really beautiful about that, and beautiful about, yeah, about getting to witness that, to know in our lives when we feel open to doing that. And that was really what I was hoping for this to be. And it's so much, I don't know that I had those exact words. And I see that it's become that, which is really cool, that this podcast has become a space to to showcase that, to potentially model that. Um, yeah, if that connects with you. And I feel really grateful to see it connect for myself that way, and to feel that at the end of this first season. My goodness, so much embracing messiness. That is what this is all about. Yeah, I just love that so much. And so, yeah, this podcast began with, yeah, being courageous to be seen, being courageous to use my voice, to learn my voice, um, to speak to using your voice, period, as like anyone listening to this. What does it look like to honor that invitation, to step into that, and yeah, and what does it look like when we trust our own voice? How then do we connect even deeper with another when they use theirs? How much more deeply are we able to hear another, because we now know our voice and can discern the difference between the two? Can we be really present? Can we ask more questions and be even more compassionately curious, to know if we're understanding someone the way that they want to be understood, to know if we've heard them correctly? And by correctly, I mean how they meant to be understood. And that's such an interesting extra step that is a really powerful one relationally. And so many times I think we think we understand people, and we don't go after that clarity. And my, what a beautiful way that we could connect even deeper to ourselves and to one another, to go after confirmation that we've understood someone deeply. And, not everyone may be open to that. And also, I've been really surprised in the times that I've gone after it, just how many more people are open to it than you may think, than I thought. Um, so yeah, that's really beautiful to me. I think another thing that's come up through all of this is the inevitability of one of my favorite things coming up. Like, we were talking about spaciousness. That's one of my very favorite things in the world. Creating spaciousness and living into that conversation. The other is rehumanizing. And I really do feel like in this season, the invitation to rehumanize ourselves has been at the forefront. It's come through everything that we've done. And to say this, to rehumanize ourselves inherently rehumanizes one another. It offers it to the collective, again, because we are a part of the collective. And it teaches us how important it is to rehumanize. And if we're able to offer it to ourselves, we are more readily able to offer it to others. And rehumanizing ourselves, I feel like, really came up to the top and through this season. And really in the reminder of, where can we acknowledge to ourselves that we are doing our very best? Where can we give ourselves grace? Where can we hold ourselves accountable always? And where do we need to give ourselves grace? Are we perhaps being far harsher on ourselves than we need to be? Can we bring compassionate curiosity? Can we still hold ourselves accountable while loving ourselves well, while not making our identity something that is inherently flawed or broken or wrong or yeah, just anything that needs to be demonized or belittled or punished, anything punitive. If we're treating ourselves in a punitive manner, there's something there that it feels like there's an invitation to dive into of what way could we meet ourselves more lovingly? What what might also be there that we're not maybe working through quite yet? What ways are we trying to maybe protect ourselves or be in a survival state or are living through um, trauma that has happened to us? What are things that are happening there that are causing us to actively hurt ourselves? And can we acknowledge that and can we choose another way? And that might not be easy, right? That might require us to ask for help, to seek um, to seek professionals that are trauma informed and skilled, are, therapists, somatic, cognitive, and any type, whatever it is that we may need that would support us in that journey. Can we do that in order to better relate to ourselves and therefore better relate and connect with the world around us? And that is huge. Yeah. Can we give ourselves a break and realize that we really are doing our best? And can we be honest when we're maybe not? And can those two things be held with loving kindness? Can we still treat ourselves kindly and with gracious space when we need to be honest with ourselves that that to be responsible, to be accountable, to push ourselves a little bit, and not in a way of force, but in a way of the invitation to step up. And I think that there's a really cool thing there with the way that we can connect and relate to ourselves differently that way when we actually aren't berating ourselves and shaming ourselves into anything, really. I was going to say change. I was going to say, um, but yeah, it's really anything. And so, can we take another avenue? Can we be really kind when things like shame and guilt come to the surface? And can we go about that differently with how we relate to ourselves in those moments and how we take good care and what we do next with that and how we honor that and what brought it up and what's living inside of us that's bringing those things to the surface. So much there. Um, yeah. So yeah, I think that this is um, the rehumanizing ourselves piece. This whole series has been a return to self. It has been episode after episode, a way of helping us to, or inviting us to understand ourselves more compassionately, understand ourselves perhaps from a different perspective, open up space to reconnect with the core of who we are um, and our inner knowing and the inner wisdom and compass that we have, and creating more trust there and allowing that to be something that's really important for our individual selves and for the collective of this world. Yeah, how powerful and necessary it is. And that has been a really cool through line to me. It's really special to me. Um, and also, there's this piece too of how I really liked when I am in my notes, I actually had written something here where just like the deep humanity that I feel like is also here, like we talking about rehumanizing ourselves, it's also rehumanizing each other, because there is what I feel like was also found, and I was speaking to a little bit before as we were talking about rehumanizing ourselves. There's humanity, deep, deep humanity in shared inquiry, that in living these questions and in sharing them, whether it was like with a guest and a guest episode or doing one of these solos and sharing it out in the world and having this conversation be open to whoever is listening to it, there's shared humanity here. We get to connect with each other in this way, and it's really beautiful to me. I have no idea, unless someone reaches out, how any given episode may create a conversation, a continued conversation for them. And anything that might have been said, any question that we might have dove into, how that, how that touches you in your life and what that might bring up for you, and the things that that might then take and create in your life, and the ways you'll deepen into the question in a whole way that's specific and really beautifully unique to you, and things that I just brings me joy to think about, that I just have no idea. Like, I will live it out this way in my life, but there are other people that are listening to this that I will never know how it gets to live out from there. But we share in that. We share in this conversation and getting to be a part of this conversation. And in that way, we're co-creating something. And that's so beautiful to me. And we just don't know the impact that we have until we share something. And even then, we may not know the impact. And still, we give the opportunity for the power of impact, the power of things like shared humanity, the power of, yeah, I don't know, just like of inviting something, of yeah, of just even like it's connection. It's connection. Just, being able to hear your own self or story or inquiry in any one of these episodes, even if it was only just for a minute. And that to me is really incredible. We can feel so siloed. We can feel so alone in this world. And even when, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, even when we need to walk through something alone, we don't have to go it alone fully. We can have support around us energetically, and that is massive. And I think this season and doing this podcast has reminded me just how profound that can be, just how amazing that can be, and all of the creative ways we can go after that, which is really, yeah, so fun to know. And also a big thing that I have definitely felt has come through this is that through this series, I have been reminded how growth lives often in discomfort. And it takes a lot of courage to live into questions. And can we lean into discomfort? Can we lean into the unknown in life? And I think a big thing that I feel like I've taken away from this season is getting to create more capacity, or like a wider capacity, it may be the best way to put it, with being with discomfort, and holding complexity, holding nuance, holding contradiction, holding multidimensionality. And I think there's something really powerful there about being able to do that. It's not necessarily easy. And I feel like it offers the space again for connection. It offers the space for us to not go missing from the conversation and still be with another. It's the other lesson that comes up for me, that's really come through this season for me, is the ability to love deeply and not self-abandon. Yeah, to love not at the expense of myself, but with myself, with my whole self. And that is a part of this, right? To be able to hold discomfort can look like, not necessarily seeing eye to eye with someone and not needing to have them be wrong, and also not have what I have maybe be wrong, or sitting with the discomfort of, sitting with tension, of just the friction of what it means to be two complex human beings in this world relating, or more than two. Um, but in this scenario, to simplify, if it's, to sit with and to have a wider capacity to hold complexity really means, in other words, I feel like, to be able to be human together, to be able to not need to be anything other than present humans together, which may mean that there's tension in the room, which may mean that there's discomfort in the room, which may mean that there is a lot of unknown in the space or ahead. It may mean that we're living into questions in real time by each other's side. In fact, I think that's what life is. I think this is what life is. It is living questions all the time. It is not forcing answers. It is learning what trust really means, when we can really, really trust ourselves, when we can learn what it means to trust another, when we can allow life to not need to be held so tightly and controlled, but to have sort of this an exhale, like an openness of the body. There's so much of this that we've talked about over the course of this season, of protecting the soft parts. And it's so funny because this episode is airing on the summer solstice, which I'm so excited about, that it just happened to fall this way. And that also times the time lines up with Cancer season astrologically. And Cancer is what I always think of when I talk about this motion, this protecting our soft parts, because the Cancerian, um, it is shown as a crab. I lost my words there for a second. It is a crab form, and it it is a hard exterior shell that protects all of this soft belly, these soft pieces. And if you know anything about Cancer energy, it is very much so this emotionally deep, deeply, deeply, deeply caring and thoughtful and sensitive and loving, um, and nurturing and caretaking sign. It is very much non-gendered, kind of maternal energy. And I remember hearing it described once as like, it remembers how you take your tea. It is like, it remembers all of your every friend's birthday. It is so very thoughtful. It is so very sweetly sensitive, the superpower of sensitivity. It has depths and depths and depths of emotion that it will feel. And it has all of that here in this soft, beautiful area. It is so open to nurture. It is so open to feel life and really embody the the full extent of it. And also, due to its sensitivity, it has this very protective hard shell barrier, as crabs do. And the one piece about Cancer and its shadow is that while this hard barrier is a good reminder that we do need to have that container, like we talked about, the beauty of a riverbed, and having that structure, that sustainable structure that really helps support the beauty of things like deep emotions, and things that fall into the non-gendered feminine aspect of life. It's this thing where, yeah, where that protection is important to remember, those those guardrails, those boundaries, those containers, whatever we want to call it, is helpful, is necessary. It's supportive. And also the shadow part is being too closed off because they feel the sensitivity, the Cancerian energy feels the sensitivity so deeply, feels so deeply, um and so can just like really close off and shut down. And so there's a lesson here, I think, for us all when it comes to those protective parts or protecting those soft parts. And yeah, I know that I started this with that exhale, right? So this is that protective, sometimes shadowed thing, but also may just be where we are in the learning of protecting how we needed to at a certain point of our life to keep ourselves safe, or certain parts of our lives continuously to keep ourselves safe. And can we be with that conversation of what it looks like to be open to a new storyline, to be open to relating to that differently, to be open to seeing that as a skill that we used to survive, and be curious if we need to live into it in any given moment that it's coming up, and be really honest with ourselves about that. And so, yeah, so that's discernment again. That brings that brings us back into being able to hold complexity, and yeah, to be presently human. That was where this started. And I think that that's a really powerful piece that has come through this season for me personally. How important it is when we show up presently, how powerful it can be when we have the ability to do that, when we have access in our nervous systems to do that and to offer that and to step into that and to show ourselves how we have ourselves, how we've got ourselves, and also the beauty of what's possible when we can be met. We may not always be met, but when we can be, there's we get the opportunity to rewire some really cool things. And even when we are the ones that are meeting ourselves in any given scenario, we're already doing the rewiring. And it is profound how beautiful that is. It's creating self-trust, it's creating deep love internally that, of course, gets to then be reserves that we offer out. And there's no one right way to do this, right? We don't necessarily need to completely know all of who we are and have this deep connected relationship before we relate to other people. That's just not how it works. We're doing it all in real time, and this is where it can get messy because we will have impact on other people, and this is where we get to hold ourselves accountable, not in a punitive way. We get to be responsible for the impact that we have. We get to hear another how they want to be heard when we've impacted them. And we can come from a space of integrity and honesty about our intention, and also see the the impact that that's had on someone else, and be able to be there with both. And I think there's something just, again, this like whew, exhale, this spaciousness, this connected spaciousness that gets to exist, yeah, with these invitations. I'm loving all of the ways that this is connecting, and it really does feel like a continued integration. That this podcast for me, every episode has been a living, breathing integration, a living, breathing invitation to embody things deeper and deeper, as they start to click, as I start to live them in practice. And that's been incredible. Yeah, really, really amazing. Yeah, I also loved too, I'm looking back at my notes now. I also loved too this piece of sitting with unnameable questions in real time. I also loved that that came to the forefront of sometimes we don't even have the question. Sometimes we have the feeling. It's a somatic experience, which again has been a big conversation through this podcast of what is the language of our body? How is it communicating with us? How is that different from how we hear our own thoughts and opinions and um, yeah, just intellectually how we are and communicate to each other. And when it's different from thoughts, it's similar to how we were saying, like hearing another how they want to be heard. I feel like that's the conversation somatically with the body, where it's, am I getting you the way that you want to be understood? Even if I'm not hearing it as thoughts, even if it's communicating in a different way, which is how the body tends to communicate from my experience and from what I'm learning and understanding of it through somatic practices. Can we ask that question? Am I getting you right? Am I understanding you the way that you want to be understood? And continue to listen with different ears to what our body might be communicating and the healing that could happen from there. The connection, again, that can happen with ourselves over time. The intimacy with our our whole self, our body, our whole self. There's something just really profound about that. And yes, so there may be then sometimes where the question is unnameable. And there's also times where, like we'll feel it. And so it's unnameable in that way because we don't have the words to put to it yet. And also there's times where we have parts of questions and our soul is not yet ready to hold ourselves with the fullness of that question quite yet. Maybe it is in parts, maybe it is by ourselves for a little while, but maybe just not fully shared in different places and spaces, like being very discerning about what feels most supportive to your being. Again, we talked about safety and only you knowing really that for yourself. And this is one of those moments. And so I think that that was a really important nuance and distinction to come up through this season. So, yeah, my gosh, lots and lots of things. Oh, yeah. Also, I really loved that questions, I'm realizing, can be portals to connect, as we were talking about connection being this through line. But questions can really be portals to connect deeper with our body, our relationships, the work that we're up to in this world. The dreams and creativity that we have. And for sure, as we've been talking about a ton in this episode, is back to self, a remembrance, even a deepening, a return, as I was saying earlier, to self. And that portal is so special and so sweet to get to explore. And I feel like we got to do a bit of that over this season, which I'm very grateful for. And I am excited to continue to deepen into. So, yeah. So, things I had written down that I would love to share that really came up for me as what I'm walking away with and feel like I really got the chance to bring forward, live into, learn to embody, and I'm continuing to learn to embody, practice, bring awareness to in my everyday is learning to love without abandoning myself in the process, which I spoke to, braving being seen, which was the invitation of how this podcast began, learning to use my voice like I'm doing right now and allowing myself to be present in it. There's no need to do this perfectly. I even have notes to support me today so that I got to say the things that I really wanted to in this episode because there was so much from this season to to encapsulate, and it felt really beautiful to support myself with notes today and to really honor hitting different notes because I knew it would inspire this this to respond, my human design piece that I come back to again here, which is so sweet. So, yeah, I'm very grateful with how far I've come with my voice, and it really is a cool thing to live into, to see how far in a relatively short amount of time I've come personally, but that we can as humans move things in our lives that feel immovable. I don't even know how to put into words how fearful I was to share my voice for so much of my life and how much I second guessed things I would say or sharing a response in a conversation or not needing to run something through someone else to make sure that I sounded all right or I made sense. And sometimes even I'll still say, did that, I don't even know if that made sense. And funny enough, most of the time, the response that I'll get from people is, oh, that was so clear. And a lot of the time, when I don't say that caveat at the end, it ends up being that someone says, oh, I didn't quite get that. Can you re-say that in this way or whatever? And I realize, oh, I'm likely in an insecure and vulnerable nervous space when I caveat with I don't even know if that made sense. And so can I be tender with myself there and also trust that if someone doesn't understand me, they can go after understanding, and I've watched that happen, and it's great because then I can clarify and I'll have the space to do it. And if someone doesn't go after that understanding, can I be okay to have shared what I shared and not need to go after making sure it was definitely understood the way that I wanted it to be? Can I trust that someone will go after that understanding if they've misunderstood? And can I trust that the conversation may never really be over and that it can continue to build, and therefore maybe I will be able to be understood how I'm wanting to be understood at a later point in time in the conversation? Can I humanize conversations and connection and myself? And so there's something really powerful about that. I feel like the wall, the block that was there between me and just being seen actually has softened significantly to the point that it's actually hard to tap back into the felt sense memory of what that was like right when I was starting this. Like I do remember, like the catch in the throat and the nerves in the body, and still just like it's so cool to see the shift of what I feel right now in my body as I share this episode. That doesn't mean that feeling will come back or it doesn't come up in other areas, or if I were to have a live conversation with someone, I'm sure those nerves would be, like the public speaking piece, I'm sure those nerves would come right back up and it would have to walk through this all over again. And this one piece, it's really cool to see how far I've come in that invitation to myself, in living into that question. It's really beautiful. This is part of the answer that I've lived into, is just living into it has been part of that answer. It's brought clarity to me. It's brought a lot of healing and peace and ease. But yeah, a lot of clarity in what it looks like to invite that forward and to honor our voices and how important they are to learn about, to use, to share. And so thank you for letting me do that first and foremost. um, and my other list of things is I was saying a wider capacity to be with discomfort and hold complexity and other people's truths alongside my own. Um, but also a deeper trust in myself and my unfolding and how powerful that has been to witness. And that's what I'm speaking to in getting to share my voice here and in getting to do this. Yeah, I thank you. Thank you for being here for this first season. Thank you for being here for this this courageous try of mine to just put myself out there and see one step at a time could potentially create, to go after things like connection, to just have an idea and to run with it without knowing where it was going to go. That is living the questions. That is trusting the process. And I feel like a big part of what I'm learning is this deeper trust in myself and the unfolding, my personal unfolding. And in that is a deeper trust in the unknown and the unfolding of life and what's to come. And there's an active part of that, right? We have to be active in that. And there's a surrender too. That's the trust piece. Can we create connected space? Can we be spacious with ourselves? Can we not have to force or pressure ourselves to be somewhere already, to be in that incongruent space just because we know we want to be there, or maybe because we think we should be there? Can we allow ourselves to really be honest about where we are, be where we are, and be open to the possibility of what's ahead, to have direction and to be actively co-creating with life to go in that direction, and to also have enough openness, enough trust that we're able to move how we need to not force but to allow. And I think that that's a big part of what living the questions is and has shown itself to be over the course of this series, this first season. Thank you for being a part of this beautiful first season. And yeah, all of this learning and exploration. I just feel so honored to be something that you are listening to be something that you're investing time and heart in. And I'm so grateful to just put this out into the world and see who it meets. And I hope that you are met by these episodes in whatever way you are needing to be met right now. I hope if you revisit them, that they meet you in that moment, the way you are needing to be met in that moment. And that that you just, I invite kindness and compassion to your beautiful, beautiful soul, to rehumanize yourself at every turn, to trust that, to trust that you are really doing your best, and that you know when you can hold yourself accountable, when you know that you're actually, you know, when you know that you are not necessarily doing the best that you can do. And I feel like those are the wrong words, because it's not about, you know, doing your best, quote unquote. It's, that's the humanizing piece of things. Doing your best, quote unquote, as I say it here, is that we're using the skills we have at the level that we're able, and to honor ourselves there, that when we learn more and know more, we can do better. And we also can we be aware and honest with ourselves when we know that we have skills that we're not using, and an ability that maybe we're not going after in a given scenario? And can we be honest with ourselves there, and can we hold ourselves accountable there and be responsible there? Because sometimes we may choose not to lean into certain things or not to use our skills, and still can we be in integrity with the impact we create? Can we be responsible for the actions that we take or do not take? And can we be kind to ourselves in all of that? Can we really hold ourselves beautifully as the complex and multidimensional humans that we are? Can we be with our difference from one another? And can that be a really beautiful thing to live into next to each other? Yeah, there's so much here. And I think it comes back to this piece for me of learning to love ourselves deeply, learning so much so that we learn how to love another without abandoning ourselves. Can we love this world? Can we love each other? Can we love in this world and not abandon self? This feels like that connected presence is they're one and the same in that way. And so, can we remember how important it is for us to be here, to be present? That is a part of relating and being connected, being present, having all of those things available is the beauty of being human. So, with that, thank you for this beautiful first season. I am so used to saying, I'll see you next week. And that feels so surreal to me to not say. And I will see you in the fall. I'm very much looking forward to the sweetness of season 2. I already am excitedly chatting with some people to be the guest episodes on that season. And I really look forward to what those conversations will bring, what conversations will come to the surface through all of our solo explorations. And I love having no idea what that looks like right now. That's so cool to me. And to know right now what all of this first season has brought is is so beautiful. It's like it's so rich, it's so juicy, it's so like it's satiating. It feels like that's so satiating. And I'm so grateful for this. Thank you for the space for this. I feel grateful to my past self for leaning into this and every iteration of me that continued to say yes every time to build what this is. And I'm excited to see what it continues to become as I continue to co-create it with you, as I continue to live into it and continue to live into the questions in every part of this podcast creation. I'm very much looking forward to the continuation of this journey, and I'm so grateful I got to be with you in this first inaugural season with you. Until next season, until the autumnal equinox here in the northern part of the hemisphere, take really good care. And thank you so, so much for your listening ears, for your open heart, and for the curiosity that you will continue to live into and have in this season so far. I am so excited to continue to live into questions with you, continue to be compassionately curious, and continue to deepen in the trust of the unfolding as it comes, as it goes, and being an active participant in that. Sending you so much love, and I will see you for season 2.